My wife's boss was my kid's emergency contact, so I stayed quiet and checked the receipts. On a Tuesday afternoon, my kid's school called, but they didn't call me. They called my wife's boss because he was listed as my kid's emergency contact, beat. I didn't confront my wife. I made one small change. I stayed silent, called a lawyer, and started saving receipts because I knew someone would try to call it a harmless mistake. My name is Chris. I'm 37, and I live outside Denver. Pause. I'm not a dramatic person. I'm the guy who reads instructions, pays bills on time, and keeps a spare phone charger in the car. Beat. My wife at the time was Lauren, 35. She worked in operations for a mid-sized company, good salary, busy calendar, always just one more email. And her boss, Evan, was the kind of boss who blurred lines by calling it team culture. Pause. We had 2 kids. Mia, 8. Kaleb, 6. And like most parents, we had school forms filled out a long time ago, emergency contacts, authorized pickup, medical permissions. Boring stuff, until it isn't. Beat. This started on a Tuesday. I was in a grocery store parking lot, loading bags into the trunk, when I got a text from Lauren. Hey, busy day. Can you handle dinner? Normal. I replied, yep. Then I got a call from an unknown number. Local area code. I answered, hi, is this Evan? A woman asked. I paused. No, this is Chris. Oh, she said, sounding confused. I'm sorry. This is front office from Ridgeview Elementary. We were trying the primary emergency contact. My stomach tightened. Pause. Primary emergency contact is my wife. And I'm the second. There was keyboard clicking. I'm looking at our system, she said slowly. It shows Evan Carter as the first emergency contact. Relationship. Family friend. I couldn't speak for a second. Human interjection. If you're listening and thinking, maybe it's a typo, I thought that too. For about 3 seconds. Then your brain does that thing connecting details you didn't even know you were storing. I said carefully, can you tell me what number you called? She read it out. It wasn't mine. It wasn't Lauren's. It was a number I recognized because I'd seen it flash on Lauren's phone before labeled Evan, work, beat. I swallowed. What happened with my kid? Oh, nothing major, the front office said quickly, like she realized she'd stepped into something. Mia bumped her knee at recess. She's okay. We just call when there's any incident report. My hands tightened around my car keys. Please call my phone, I said. Right now. Put me as primary until I confirm the file. Of course, she said. I'm so sorry. I hung up and just stood there next to my trunk. Grocery bags, sunlight, normal world. And inside my head, alarms. Pause. Mini cliffhanger. Because emergency contact isn't casual, it's not who's fun. It's who gets called when your child needs you. So why was my wife's boss there? I drove home on autopilot. That evening, Lauren came in late. Not frantic, not apologetic. Just tired. She kissed Mia's head like everything was fine. I waited until the kids were upstairs. Then I said, calm. Why is Evan listed as our kid's emergency contact? Lauren froze, just for a fraction. Then she laughed one of those laughs that's meant to shrink the question. What? She said. He's not. I got a call from the school, I replied. They tried Evan first. Lauren's smile tightened. That's impossible. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I just said, they read his number to me. Lauren set her purse down slowly like she was placing a heavy object. It must be an old form, she said. Maybe I wrote the wrong thing. Why would you write your boss at all? I asked. Lauren exhaled sharply. Because you're hard to reach sometimes. I stared at her. I work in building maintenance. My phone is on me all day. Hard to reach was simply not true. Pause. Human interjection. Here's the moment where most people start yelling. I didn't. I watched her eyes, because you can learn more from what someone avoids than what they say. I said, calm. Okay, tomorrow we'll go to the school and fix it. Lauren nodded too quickly. Sure. Then she added, don't make it a big thing. It's embarrassing. Embarrassing. Not dangerous. Not wrong. Embarrassing. Mini cliffhanger. When someone's first concern is optics, not safety, pay attention. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept replaying the front office voice. Primary emergency contact. Around 1 a.m. I did something I'd never done in our marriage. I opened my phone and created a folder called Receipts. Then I saved a note inside it with one line. Ridgeview called Evan first, Tuesday, 4:12 p.m. Because I knew what would happen later. Someone would say, "That's not what happened." Pause. The next morning, I called a lawyer before I called my wife. Not because I wanted a divorce. Because I wanted to understand the boundaries. The lawyer, Miss Harlan, asked me one question first. "Are you the legal parent of both children?" "Yes," I said. "Good," she replied. "Then no one should be inserting a third party into emergency access without your consent. Get copies of the school record. In writing." I swallowed. "Should I confront my wife?" Miss Harlan said. "Not emotionally, not yet. First, you verify. Paper first, then conversation." Mini cliffhanger. Paper first. That sentence became my whole strategy. That afternoon, I went to the school alone. Front office was polite, but cautious. They printed the emergency contact page from the parent portal and slid it across the counter. And there it was. Emergency contact Hasson, Evan Carter. Relationship. Family friend. Authorized pickup. Yes. My throat went cold. Then I saw the part that made my hands go numb. Under notes, it said, "Evan can pick up if mom is unavailable." If mom is unavailable. Not if parents are unavailable. Not if dad can't. Just, if mom is unavailable. Mini cliffhanger. In one sentence, I'd been demoted in my own family's safety plan. I thanked them. I didn't argue. I asked for a copy. Then I sat in my car and stared at the paper until the ink blurred a little. Because I didn't just have a suspicion anymore. I had proof. I didn't touch Lauren's laptop. I didn't scroll. I didn't click anything. I just took a photo of the screen with my phone. Pause. Time. Date. Subject line. Receipts. Then I closed the laptop gently, like it was a sleeping animal. When Lauren got home, she went straight for the kitchen table. She froze when she saw the laptop closed. "What's this?" she asked. "What's what?" I said. She tapped the lid. "Why is my laptop closed?" I looked at her for a beat, calm. "Because we have kids, and we don't leave work stuff open." Lauren's face tightened. "Okay." Mini cliffhanger. I wasn't trying to trap her. I was trying to see if she'd volunteer the truth. She didn't. That night, after the kids were in bed, I said, "I went to the school." Lauren's shoulders stiffened. I placed the printed page on the table. No drama, just paper. Lauren looked down at it, then up at me. "I can explain," she said. I nodded. "Please do." Lauren rubbed her forehead. "Evan travels a lot. He's always near his phone. He's reliable, and your husband isn't?" I asked. Lauren's eyes flashed. "Chris, don't do that." "Do what?" I said quietly. "Ask why my wife's boss has pickup permission for my kids." Lauren's voice dropped. "It's not like that." That sentence, "it's not like that," is never comforting. It's a hallway, not an answer. Pause. Human interjection. If you've ever heard, "It's not like that," you know you're about to be asked to accept a vague story without details. That's why I stayed calm. Calm forces details. I said, "Then tell me exactly what it is." Lauren hesitated. "It's for emergencies." I tapped the paper. "It says he's the primary. That's not an emergency backup. That's a choice." Lauren swallowed. "I didn't think it mattered." "It matters," I said, "because the school called him, not me." She looked away. Mini cliffhanger. When someone looks away during a direct question, they're not searching memory. They're choosing the version of truth they can survive. I asked, "When did you add him?" Lauren whispered, "A few months ago." "Why?" I asked. She exhaled and said, "Because I've been overwhelmed. Evan offered to help. He said he understands how hard it is to manage everything." Evan offered to help. I kept my voice steady. "Help with what? Specifically?" Lauren's eyes got wet. "You're making this a trial." "I'm making it clear," I replied. Then she said it quietly, like she didn't want the words to have weight. "He picked them up once." My stomach dropped. "Once," I repeated. "When?" Lauren hesitated. "When I had a late meeting. I didn't want to bother you." I stared. "You didn't want to bother me, so you called your boss to pick up our kids." She shook her head quickly. "It sounds bad when you say it like that." "It is bad," I said. Mini cliffhanger. That was the first time she admitted a real action. And once you have one real action, you start wondering how many more are hidden behind, "It's not like that." I didn't shout. I didn't threaten. I said, tomorrow. We remove him from everything. And you send him a message while I'm sitting here saying he is not to pick up our children again. Lauren's jaw tightened. That's humiliating. I replied, calm. So was the school calling your boss as my kid's emergency contact. Silence. Lauren stood up, paced, then said, fine. She typed a message. I watched her hands shake slightly. She showed me the screen before sending. Hey, Evan, Chris and I are updating the school file. Please don't pick up the kids again, we'll handle it. She hit send. A minute later, Evan replied, no worries. Tell Chris I'm happy to help anytime. Happy to help anytime. That line wasn't about helpfulness. It was about access. Pause. I screenshot it and saved it. Human interjection. If you were me, would you confront Evan directly? I wanted to. But Miss Harlan's voice was in my head. Paper first, then conversation. The next day, I called the school again. I asked, politely, can you tell me when Evan Carter was added, and who authorized pickup permission? The front office said they couldn't disclose everything by phone, but I could request records. So I filed a written request. Then I checked something else, the parent portal. Lauren had always managed the school portal login. I asked her for the password. She hesitated. Why? Because I'm a parent, I said, calm, and I want access. She gave it to me, reluctantly. When I logged in, I saw the change history. Emergency contacts updated on a date 3 months earlier at 9:46 p.m. I recognized that night. Because it was the night Lauren said she was too tired to talk and went to bed early. Pause. Mini cliffhanger. The update happened while she was too tired to talk, but not too tired to rearrange our kids' emergency access. I didn't say that out loud. I just took screenshots. Receipts. That evening, Miss Harlan reviewed what I had and said, you're doing the right thing. Now we need to consider intent. Is this negligence or preparation? Preparation for what? I asked. Miss Harlan paused. I don't know, but listing a boss as primary and pickup is not casual. Then she added, also secure your accounts. Not because your wife is a villain. Because when boundaries collapse, people make reckless choices. So I did. Changed passwords. Turned on two-factor. Made sure my phone number was primary on everything important. Then I waited. And 2 days later, the next shoe dropped. Mia's teacher emailed both parents and wrote, hi, we're updating our trusted adults list for field trips. Please confirm who is authorized. Attached was a PDF. And in the trusted adults section, someone had typed, Evan Carter stepfigure. Not family friend. Not coworker. Stepfigure. I stared at the screen until my eyes hurt. Mini cliffhanger. Because no one types stepfigure as a random mistake. That word comes from a story someone is already telling. Lauren didn't answer my question right away. She sat down slowly at the kitchen table, like her body had run out of excuses before her brain did. Finally, she said, it's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding with the word step figure? I asked. Lauren's eyes flashed. They needed a category. I kept my voice low. They have categories, like aunt, uncle, family friend. You chose something else. Mini cliffhanger. The problem wasn't the category, it was the direction it pointed. Human interjection. This is where I should tell you I had some genius moment. I didn't. I had a quiet, sick feeling in my stomach, and I forced myself to stay slow and factual. I asked, did Evan ever ask you to put him on those forms? Lauren whispered, no. I waited. Then she added, not directly. There it was. Not directly means indirectly. I said, Lauren, I'm going to request the visitor logs from the school. Lauren's head snapped up. Why would you do that? Because you admitted he picked them up once, I said. I need to know if it was once. Lauren stood up, voice rising. You're trying to make me look like a terrible mother. I didn't move. I'm trying to make my kids safe. She stared at me. Then she said something that didn't match the situation. You're going to ruin everything. Ruin everything. Not hurt my feelings. Everything. Mini cliffhanger. When someone says everything, they're not talking about the relationship. They're talking about a plan. I called Miss Harlan the next morning. She said, request the logs. Also, keep communication in writing. Do not engage in arguments. So I emailed the school administrator, polite and short. Please provide the authorized pickup log entries for my children for the last 6 months, including IDs scanned. The school responded within 24 hours. They provided a list of names and dates, no sensitive data, just the legal log. And I felt my throat tighten because there were 3 entries under Evan Carter. Not 1. 3. Dates. February 12. March 3. April obsprezece. 3 separate pickups. Mini cliffhanger. 3 pickups means 3 moments where my kids walked out of school with my wife's boss while I was alive, present, and unaware. I printed it. I didn't wave it around. I sat down with Lauren that night and placed it on the table. Lauren's face went pale. 3, I said quietly. You said once. Lauren started crying immediately, fast tears, like a fire sprinkler. I didn't want you to be mad, she said. I replied, calm. I am mad, but I'm more concerned that you lied. She wiped her face. You work. You're busy. Evan was nearby. I asked, why wasn't I called? Lauren whispered, because Evan said it would stress you out. Evan said. So her boss was now an authority in our home. A person deciding what I should know about my own children. Human interjection. If you're thinking, that's insane, yes, that's why I kept focusing on paper. Paper cuts through insanity. I asked, were the kids comfortable with him? Lauren hesitated. Then she said, they like him. That sentence made me dizzy. Not because kids can't like adults, but because she said it like it justified secrecy. Mini cliffhanger. The danger wasn't that my kids liked him. The danger was that my wife was positioning him as normal without my consent. That night, after Lauren went to bed, I sat with Mia. I didn't interrogate her. I didn't make her choose sides. I said, hey, when Uncle Evan picks you up, what happens? Mia frowned. He's not my uncle. My stomach tightened. Who calls him that? Mia shrugged. Mom says he's Evan. He buys snacks sometimes. Does he ask you questions? I asked, calm. Mia nodded. He asks if you're coming to the school play, and if you're still busy. I closed my eyes. Because that wasn't small talk. That was shaping a narrative in my kid's head. Human interjection. Parents, if you take anything from this story, take this. You don't need to hate someone to keep them away from your child. Boundaries aren't hate, they're safety. The next day, Ms. Harlan filed something called a temporary parenting plan request. Nothing dramatic. Just a legal guardrail. No third-party pickups without written consent from both parents. Lauren found out and called me screaming. Not insults, but panic. You're bringing lawyers into our family, she cried. I replied calm. You brought your boss into our emergency contacts. Silence. Then she said quietly, Evan is going to be furious. That line told me more than any confession. Mini cliffhanger. She wasn't worried about me, she was worried about him. That evening, Evan emailed Lauren and CC'd me. Subject, concern. It read, Chris, Lauren mentioned you're uncomfortable with my involvement. I respect your boundaries. I'm only concerned about the kid's stability. I'd be happy to discuss like adults. I stared at the email. He used the words kid's stability, like he had standing. I forwarded it to Miss Harlan. She replied with 2 words. Do not engage. Mini cliffhanger. And that's when I realized Evan wasn't just helping. He was positioning himself as a stakeholder. 2 days later, Lauren's company HR emailed her about professional boundaries. Apparently, someone had reported the situation. Lauren accused me. I can't believe you did that, she hissed. I said, calm. I didn't. But now HR knows something is wrong. Lauren's face twisted fear, anger, humiliation. And then she said it finally. Evan told me he could help me get full custody if you ever tried to leave. My stomach went cold. Full custody. So that's what the emergency contact was really about. Not convenience. Preparation. When I opened the proposed parenting schedule, my hands went numb. It wasn't official court paperwork. It was a draft. But drafts tell you what someone is thinking. It suggested primary residence with Lauren, weekends with me, additional support person available, Evan Carter, additional support person. There he was again. In writing, pause. Mini cliffhanger. People don't draft schedules like this unless they've rehearsed a life where you're optional. I didn't confront Lauren with the schedule that night. I sent it to Miss Harlan. She called me within 10 minutes. Chris, she said, calm but serious, we move now. Temporary orders, and we request the school records formally. I asked, am I overreacting? No, she said, you're reacting to documented behavior. So, we filed for temporary orders, basic, protective. No third-party pickups without mutual consent. Emergency contacts limited to parents plus approved family. Communication through a parenting app keeps a record. Lauren received notice and lost it. She didn't throw things. She didn't scream in front of the kids. She did something quieter. She went cold. She said, "If you do this, you'll embarrass me." I replied, "Calm, you embarrassed our family when you made your boss our emergency contact." Lauren whispered, "You're punishing me." I said, "I'm protecting our kids." Human interjection. If you're watching this thinking, this is the part where he tries to win, no, this is the part where I tried to stop losing. Then my mom, my kid's grandmother, called. Not my mom, Lauren's mom. She said, "Chris, let's not make this ugly." I asked, "Did you know Evan was on the school file?" Silence. Then she said, "Lauren told me you were too busy." I replied, "That's not an excuse." She sighed. "Evan is a good man." I swallowed. "You don't know him. You know Lauren's version." Mini cliffhanger. The family around Lauren wasn't asking if this was appropriate. They were asking how to keep it quiet. That's how you know the situation is wrong. The next week was paperwork and parenting. I updated the school file in person. I removed Evan from everything. The front office staff didn't judge. They just did their jobs. And one staff member quietly said, "For what it's worth, you're not the first parent this has happened to." That sentence chilled me, because it meant this wasn't just a messy personal story. It was a pattern of boundary crossing that schools deal with more than they should. Mini cliffhanger. 2 days after Evan was removed, he showed up at Mia's soccer practice anyway. I wasn't expecting that. Mia was running drills. Parents sat on folding chairs. Then I saw him, Evan, standing by the fence with a coffee, like he belonged there. Lauren arrived 5 minutes later and didn't look surprised. Evan smiled at Mia and waved. Mia waved back, hesitant. I stood up slowly and walked toward them, not aggressive, just present. I said calm, "Evan, please leave." He smiled like I was being unreasonable. "Chris, I'm not doing anything." I kept my voice low. "You're at my kid's practice. After being removed from emergency contacts, leave." Lauren snapped, "Stop, you're making a scene." Human interjection. This is the trick when they cross a line. They accuse you of being dramatic for noticing the line. I took out my phone and started recording not their faces, just audio and my own voice stating the date and place. Evan's smile faded immediately. Because people who blur boundaries love ambiguity. They hate records. He backed up and said, "Fine, I'll go." Lauren hissed, "Are you happy?" I replied, calm, "I'm clear." Mini cliffhanger. That night, Lauren messaged me through text despite the new communication app request saying, "You'll regret humiliating Evan." Not, "You hurt me." Not, "You scared the kids." Humiliating Evan. Receipts. Then the next escalation came from a direction I didn't expect. Mia's school counselor emailed both of us requesting a meeting. Subject line, "Student anxiety check, in." My stomach tightened. Because Mia had been quiet lately. At the meeting, the counselor said gently, "Mia mentioned she wasn't sure who picks her up anymore, and she feels like she might mess up and pick the wrong adult." I closed my eyes. That's what chaos does to kids. It turns logistics into fear. Lauren started crying in the meeting. I stayed calm. I said, "We're clarifying it. Only parents and approved grandparents." The counselor nodded. Good. Consistency will help. Mini cliffhanger. After the meeting, Lauren whispered to me in the hallway, "Evan says you're going to lose." Lose. Not, "Will heal." Lose. That's when I understood. Lauren wasn't just confused. She was being coached. 2 days later, temporary orders were granted. Not a dramatic win. Just legal structure. And the judge included a line that mattered. No unrelated third party is to be listed as emergency contact or authorized pickup without mutual written agreement. That was the guardrail. Lauren's face stayed blank in court. Evan wasn't there. But outside the courthouse, Lauren said, quietly, "You think this ends him?" Ends him. I stared at her. This isn't about him. It's about our kids. She looked away. When I read Evan's email about calling me unstable, I didn't forward it to family. I didn't post it. I sent it to Miss Harlan. She replied, "Good. This confirms the strategy." Strategy. So, it really had been a plan. We added that email to the court file as supporting documentation for why third-party involvement was harmful. Lauren's attorney, yes. She had one by now argued that Evan was just a supportive supervisor. Miss Harlan asked one simple question in mediation. Then why was he primary emergency contact and authorized pickup? Silence. Because you can't supportive supervisor your way out of that. Human interjection. This is where I want to be honest. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt sad. Because winning against your spouse doesn't feel like winning. It feels like surviving something you never volunteered for. The mediation ended with agreements that protected the kids. Evan permanently removed from school and medical contact lists. Parenting communication through the app only. No contact between Evan and the kids. Co-parenting counseling recommended. Clear pickup schedules. Lauren didn't admit everything out loud. But she stopped fighting the core point. Afterward, in the parking lot, she said, "I didn't think it would get this big." I looked at her and said, "Calm. You made your boss my kid's emergency contact. It was already big. You just didn't want me to notice." She started crying again. And for a second, I saw what I think was the real truth. Lauren was overwhelmed, flattered by attention, and then pulled into a narrative where Evan was the solution. But even if that's true, it still didn't excuse the secrecy. Because parenting isn't a place for experiments with trust. A few weeks later, Mia asked me, "Dad, is Mom mad at you?" I sat with her on the couch and said, "Mom and I are working on adult problems. You don't have to carry that." Mia nodded. "Okay." Then she said, "I don't like Evan." I didn't celebrate that. I didn't feed it. I just said, "You don't have to like him, and you won't be around him." Her shoulders relaxed. Mini cliffhanger. The biggest payoff wasn't court paperwork. It was my kid's body relaxing once the adults finally acted like adults. Here's the final update. Lauren transferred departments. Evan was moved off her chain of command after HR reviewed boundary concerns. No dramatic headlines. Just quiet consequences. We eventually divorced. Not because I wanted a trophy win. Because trust had been punctured too many times, and my first job was making sure the kids didn't grow up thinking secrets are normal. We co-parent now with structure. And I learned something I wish I'd learned earlier. If someone's help requires secrecy, it's not help. It's control. Human interjection. If you're listening and thinking, "I would have confronted the boss," I get it, but the most effective thing I did wasn't confrontation, it was documentation. Calm, boring, undeniable documentation. Because receipts don't argue. They just exist. And when the story gets rewritten, timestamps stay the same. The school calling Evan first was the moment my marriage ended quietly, internally. Calling a lawyer was the moment my kids became protected externally, legally. And the paper trail did the rest. One last thing, pause. If you're a parent, please hear me, emergency contacts are not just a form. They're a boundary, a safety plan, and a statement of trust. Beat. If you like calm, documentary-style stories with receipts and a clear payoff, subscribe. I post long-form stories like this regularly because the next one starts with a tiny update in a school portal and ends with a truth nobody can talk their way around.